In this lecture, I'm going to show you a new way of creating IIFEs, using the concepts that we just learned in the last lecture. So in the last lecture, we saw that variables declared using let and const are block scoped. And this means that these variables are defined inside of a block, and from the outside of that block, they are not accessible. Now, what does that sound like to you? Yeah, that's data privacy that we've been talking about a lot during our big project, right? So up until this point, we always used immediately invoked function expressions for that. But it looks like in ES6 we have a new, much simpler way of achieving data privacy. Because all we have to do is to use a block. So let's see how. Now a block is not restricted only to if statements or for loops or while loops. So we can also just write a block like this. All we have to do is to use curly braces and then create some code inside of these, and we just created a block. So let's now create a constant in here. So const a is 1, and then let's also create b 2 using a let statement here. So it doesn't make any difference just to use both of them here. And if we now were to console log these two here, console.log, let's say a plus b, then what would we get? Alright, we have an error here, and that's because these values are not accessible from outside of the block. So again, they are block scoped and not function scoped. So what we have here now is exactly like an IIFE, right? Like an immediately invoked function expression. So we created some data here that is not accessible from the outside. And it's much easier to write it like this, right? Remember, an IIFE in ES5 would be written like this. So ES5, we had to do all this work and write it like this, just to create a simple variable that's not accessible from the outside. And then we also have to call this function, right? So if we do console log now, okay, and let's get rid of that. Then of course we have our error here, right? So that was the old way. So this is ES6. Now let's just try to add var here, okay? So var c equals 3. And what's gonna happen then? And of course you know the answer, right? So again, let's get rid of this. And now of course we see 3. And that's because for variable declarations with the var keyword, it doesn't matter if they're inside of a block or if they're not inside of a block, because they're not block scoped, they are function scoped. Alright, so this is a very simple change that you can do if you want to start writing ES6 code. So if you have a simple IIFE like this that you need to write, you can very simply switch to doing it like this. So this is very simple and very straightforward once again. Alright, so let's now move on to the next feature of ES6.